Unfixing fixations. When it comes to Dharma practice, sooner or later, we all have to learn to drive our own car, so to speak. In other words, hands-on living is required in order to be authentic. And there's a point in Dharma training when it doesn't pay to be bashful or shy. As the old saying, carpe diem, we have to seize the day. And it's not that we shouldn't defer to others who have more experience than we. We should, of course. That's how we learn, at least in the beginning, with someone pointing things out to us. But respect for our teachers also involves respecting ourselves, at least enough to take the plunge, to dive in and to learn to put our heart into our practice, not just do it in a rote manner. And without that, where are the results? They're very few. Since we are going all the way, we must go all the way, and that means complete immersion. And this involves transformation and transmigration, whatever we can agree they are. Now, I want to give you an analogy, but try as I might, for a better analogy, I keep coming up with the image of a spider on a web with all 8 of its handholds, clinging and moving in handhold by handhold. To move, the spider must let go of one handhold and take another. And ultimately, this means releasing our fixations on the self, grip by grip, and taking another grip, probably, but one hopes with increasingly less fixation. So it's a process of elimination. In other words, keep the self, because it's a permanent part of us, but lose the fixations. It's not the self, and it's not what the self is made up with, all the things we're attached to, that is the problem. It's the fixating, the fixations, and the resulting myopia. That's the problem. Now, the Buddhist teachings make it clear that what we call a self, or self, is a natural phenomenon and not something artificial that can just somehow be removed or plucked out. In other words, we will always functionally have a self, some kind of command center for putting our grocery shopping list together, whatever. Therefore, self-denial, denying the self, is seldom very helpful. And the teachings go on to say that it is our fixation on the self that's the problem. And this suggests that we can aim for a self to which we are not overly attached. We can have a self but not be attached to it. And as mentioned, there's nothing wrong with our having a self outside of our fixation on it. And fixation means just that. Fixating to the exclusion of not fixating. Fixation of any kind is an obsessive attachment, whether positive or negative, whether we like something or dislike something, one that obscures any clarity we might otherwise have. So in other words, it's the energy, the grasping of the fixation with its locked focus and resulting myopia that is the problem. I mean, fixations are mini obsessions. That's what they are. And if we have a ton of them, like we're obsessed. It's almost like possessed. So, trying to tear out what we are attached to is just another form of attachment. It's the old tar baby syndrome from the Uncle Remus tales, if you remember that. The more you struggle and punch the tar baby, the more your fists and everything become stuck to it. So, as I keep mentioning, it's not what we are attached to, like our new bike or a brand new car, partner. that needs to be removed, only our attachment to the object of fixation, that has to be lessened and removed. It's the narrow fixation that obscures any wider vision. Maybe that's the way to say it. In other words, we can't see beyond our fixated self. It just takes up all of our oxygen, as they say lately. And I pointed out that it's not that self-denial is somehow wrong, denying ourselves. It's kind of medieval. It just doesn't work very well. And it only adds more fixation onto the self just from another angle. What needs to be done is exactly what we do with a young child when they begin to fixate on something that makes them unhappy. We distract them. There is a whole wide world out there outside of our narrow fixations, and we each have to discover that. It's just basic awareness. So, in a word, our fixations have to be unfixed, so to speak, let go of. It reminds me of the baby who's trying to find the nipple. But here the nipple for all of us is the true nature of the mind that we just can't manage somehow to find. The Lama or teacher helps us to let go of our fixations long enough to allow our mind to come to rest naturally within itself. That's the whole point. Or it reminds me of the traditional image of the teacher pointing out the moon in the sky with his finger, but the student fixates on the teacher's finger and can't see the moon. It's a little, but it works. That's a pretty good one. It's tricky, and it all boils down to some kind of transmigration or transfer of our attention and transfer or re-identification from the purely conceptual frameworks that we have been trapped in to the actual nature of the mind, that the concepts that we hold themselves attempt to revert to. We're trying to see the moon, not the finger. And a self without fixation is just a well-oiled machine, some kind of perfect personal secretary. And the energy from all that fixation on the self, that energy is not in itself wrong, it's just misplaced. Because there it is. It's just energy trying to come to rest on something. Using the above analogy, our self-fixations are just us focusing on the finger rather than the moon. It's a simple mistake, but one that has to be undone. Dharma practice helps us to let go of our fixations so that our attention is released and can spontaneously embrace the true nature of the mind of what is. It's right there with us. We just don't see it. And as I mentioned earlier, it's just like that baby, which I had 3 kids I'd seen, so with his head bouncing around on the mom's breast trying to find the nipple. Once they latch on, everything is fine. It is the same with discovering the nature of the mind. And we need a teacher to point out just how we can do that.